Hi there, this is Forrest, and this is your very rapid recap of Session 2 of Astrology 101, 8 Weeks to Astro-Literacy. So, this past Sunday in class, we went over the planets, the first layer of language in astrology. We could equate planets to actors in a movie. They're the what, all right? They're the essential human functions that are expressing and evolving themselves. Now, they're going to express and evolve themselves in the context of signs and also houses. The signs are the how and the why. They're the motivations behind and also the strategies employed by the planet. So they're kind of the roles that these actors are playing. Houses are the where. They provide the context and they identify the area of life experience where the planet and the sign are most evident in their action. That would be the scene in which the actor is playing a role. So let's go back to the planets. We talked a little bit about the Sun, Moon, and Mercury last week, and we'll review. So here's your solar glyph. This is what the Sun looks like in the chart. When you find this, you have found the Sun in the chart. It represents your major in life school, or your top priority for evolutionary development. It's the essential sense of self and the formation of a functional identity in the world, the cultivation of a healthy ego, an awareness of your own presence within the world and your impact on your circumstances. It's a sense of being alive, of being real and vital and here. Now, each of these planets can actually dysfunction, and when the Sun is not healthily functional, we see things like exaggerated or inflated ego, egotism, narcissism. We can also see it in the opposite direction, underdeveloped, passive, ill-defined sense of self or low self-esteem. In either case, the self-image is distorted. It's necessarily inaccurate. It does not feel true. The objective of the Sun is to be present in the world and to cultivate a working, evolving identity, one that feels true. So, our next player is the Moon. Once you see this glyph, you have found the Moon in the chart. Now, the Moon, in a night chart, if this person was born at night, you can consider that a second major. Otherwise, it still acts as your core, your roots, a deep fundamental sense of being well, safe, and at peace. It's an awareness of one's basic personal needs, the cultivation of a solid, supportive, emotional foundation, the primal, intuitive knowing that we experience on a subconscious or non-rational level. Less healthy expressions of the Moon are going to look like deep insecurity and fear. PTSD is an example. Phobias, repressed feelings, denial of one's needs, rejection of what some psychologists refer to as the shadow, uncontrolled and compulsive behaviors that erupt and are stemming from unconscious motivations. So the Moon's objective is to know yourself intimately and to accept and care for yourself compassionately. Next in line is Mercury. We talked about him a little bit. There's Mercury. And think of Mercury as your conscious awareness, the intellectual and communicative function, the lens through which we gather all data from our surroundings, from our experiences, from each other, and the capacity to think and to translate thought into language. Now, less healthy expressions of Mercury are going to look like a racing, overactive mind, anxiety, leanings toward being hyper-logical or maybe completely illogical. Talking without listening is that's a symptom of a misfiring Mercury. Clouded or unclear thinking, distorted perceptions, and difficulty with verbal communication. The objective that Mercury has is to sustain clarity and objectivity in one's perceptions and to communicate accurately. Now, who's next? Venus. That's what she looks like in the chart. You're very familiar with that symbol, I'm sure. Think of Venus as your sensual and emotional receptors. Some refer to Venus as the lesser benefic, or little good guy. Now, I think it's really important to resist the temptation to think of planets in terms of good or bad, positive or negative. As we've already seen, each of these symbols can fire off in a really healthy way or not so healthy a way. Each is simply a human capacity that can be developed in a way that is consistent with your value system and what you want to get done in the world. So what does Venus do? She's the function of relating and making connections, emotional and aesthetic response, the formation of opinions, and the capacity to experience the world and other people on the level of feeling. She's the ability to feel pleasure and soothing, receptivity, and the ability to take things in, to be moved by them, affected by them. Now, less healthy expression might be a preoccupation with appearances and the superficial kind of areas of life at the expense of the depth and the richness of intimacy or really getting to know things. So you might see a quickness to be critical or judgmental. You might also see a quickness to be very flattering or lavishing praise. In either case, that's a misfiring of the Venus. And the most obvious one that we run into frequently is difficulty with relationships. So the objective that Venus presents to us is how to connect and relate with each other and with the world, and to let oneself actually be affected by those experiences of relationship. So Mars is next in line, and in a way he's kind of the counterpoint to Venus, and we'll see why. Think of him as the fire that propels you. He is sometimes referred to as the lesser malefic, or little bad guy. Again, good and bad really doesn't apply here. Mars is the fight or flight response. He's our capacity to engage with stressful experiences and ideally to use them to cultivate strength and courage. He's the ability to respond to our hungers, ambitions, desires, and he's also the hunter-gatherer instinct. He represents drive, motivation, will, fortitude, assertion and aggression. The ability to put ourselves out there, to take risks, and to pursue goals. Now, less healthy expressions might be difficulty with anger management, frustration, bad temper, a lack of drive, low motivation. So any kind of Mars out of balance is going to reveal one symptom or the other. Somebody who has issues with stress management or management of their fears might have a misfiring Mars. The objective here is to assert oneself in a way and to an extent that's consistent with fulfilling one's needs and desires, and hopefully not shooting yourself in the foot in the process. Now, moving on, here is the glyph for Jupiter. You see that in the chart? That's what it means. Jupiter is your inner explorer. In Vedic astrology, he's also called Guru, which is kind of telling. He's sometimes referred to as the greater benefic, or the big good guy. Lose the good and bad. Jupiter is the human capacity for expansion, for going beyond your current knowledge, beyond your previous experiences, going beyond geographically, philosophically, professionally, and otherwise. Jupiter indicates amplification or rapid growth in a particular area of the chart. He's often associated with prosperity. He's the cultivation of a personal worldview, a sense of adventure and wonder, optimism, faith, wisdom, generosity, benevolence, and joy. Ideally, Jupiter takes all of our experiences and synthesizes them to create wisdom. Less healthy expressions might look like greed, overconfidence, foolhardiness, zealotry, dogmatic, rigid beliefs, a lack of self-control and a holier-than-thou attitude. Think of the fairy tale, The Emperor's New Clothes. When you're so committed to your personal mythology that you're unwilling to think outside of it, that's a misfiring Jupiter. So the objective is to reach past one's comfort zone constantly and consistently, and to cultivate that sense of wonder. The counterpoint to that is going to be Saturn. Looks like this in the chart. Think of Saturn as your inner disciplinarian, sometimes referred to as the greater malefic or big bad guy. You see the pattern there? Now, Saturn is the cultivation of maturity, integrity, self-limitation. He's the development of structure, of rules, and systems to govern one's life. He indicates constriction or slowing down of a particular area of the chart. Also represents boundaries, solidity, autonomy, self-sufficiency, self-respect. But the less healthy expressions are going to look like stasis, rigidity, cynicism, and complacency. You'd also see coldness, inflexibility, pessimism, inertia, hopelessness, and in some cases even depression. The objective is obviously none of those. The objective of Saturn is to build and maintain an inner structure of support and to support one's own self-reliance. Not such a bad thing at all. Next is Uranus, or Uranus. You can say it either way, and you can laugh if you want to. It's fine. I don't think it's a mistake that it looks, or the glyph looks like the Starship Enterprise, and we'll figure out why. Because you can think of him as your inner mad scientist. He's the capacity for genius and for thinking in ways that we haven't been taught to think. The revolutionary spirit, the ability to challenge and or function outside of a culturally imposed convention, the will to question and ultimately to defy authority. Idealism, ingenuity, innovation, independence. That's what Uranus is about. When he misfires and when we get a less healthy expression, we get things like pointless disruption and eccentricity, the rebel without a clue, mania, absolutism, irrational defiance, and ultimately alienation. But the objective of Uranus is to think for oneself, to choose one's own path, and to invent, to create. Not bad at all. The counterpoint to Uranus is Neptune. And that's what he looks like in the chart. Neptune is your access to alternate realities. A little bit of madness there too, but hopefully a helpful kind of madness. Neptune is your capacity for altered and expanded consciousness, universal connection, empathy, and enlightenment. The dissolution of logical or rational constructs and limiting notions of reality. The ability to dream, meditate, or engage in spiritual or magical experiences. To surrender the notion of one's separateness from the rest of the universe, and instead to blend oneself with all that is. Now, a less healthy expression of Neptune is probably pretty obvious. Drug and alcohol abuse, escapism, disconnection from or rejection of the mundane world, a total lack of boundaries, difficulty making distinctions between reality and fantasy. The objective is to transcend customary consciousness at will and to escape the limiting ego-based perspective. Finally, in our list of planets, we have Pluto. You see two glyphs because there is a more contemporary one and an older one. Either one will work. You'll see them in ephemerides and in birth charts either way. Pluto is your hidden superpower. He has the capacity to transcend personal individual identity and become a transpersonal universal symbol. Yes, like Batman. The mark you're making and ultimately leaving on the world. The significance of one's life, and that is placed in a context of the grand scheme of things, in the context of all history. It's the existential struggle. You're facing the futility of your efforts in the world, and you're also facing the massive permanent transformation that your presence in the world could be triggering. Less healthy expressions of Pluto. Perhaps a lust for power that stems from a buried sense of helplessness and being inconsequential, irrelevant, lacking a sense of mission or a sense of purpose. But the objective of Pluto is to reconcile one's humanity with one's potency, to observe the law of cause and effect, and to know that you have an effect. With great power comes great responsibility. That's pretty much Pluto's message. And I want to give you one more. I want to give you a bonus. This is not a planet in either astronomical or astrological language. It is an asteroid, and its name is Chiron. Chiron is very rapidly, and for a while now, gaining popularity in astrology, so you'll probably run into him in most of the birth charts you're going to look at, including your own. Chiron, the asteroid, is your inner wounded healer. He's the capacity to identify and remedy, as well as move past your own pain for the sake of building a happy, healthy life for yourself, but also for the ability to share your experience with other people. So there's an altruistic sense of duty to support people with similar injuries, whether those injuries are emotional ones, physical ones, mental ones, spiritual ones. And those injuries you recognize as similar to your own. It's the ability to share wisdom and experience that's stemming specifically from past trauma. Now, that can also misfire. And when we see it expressed in a less healthy way, we see things like self-pity, wallowing, personal identification with one's own pain, past traumas, and injuries, wearing them like a badge of honor. I am my pain. Also, it misfires as using past misfortune as an excuse for negativity in the present. But obviously, that's not the objective. The objective of Chiron is to draw inspiration from past challenges and to let it feed your compassion. So that's everybody. That was session 2 of Astrology 101, 8 Weeks to Astro-Literacy. If you haven't gotten your book yet, here it is. The Inner Sky by Stephen Forrest. Excellent read. And if you would like to jump in on the class, you've been keeping up on the videos, you're more than welcome to. It's this coming Sunday at 2 p.m. We go from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. and that's in North Hollywood, California at the Green Man Store. For more information, please call 818-985-2010. Thanks for watching my video. Have a good one. Bye.